afternoon and good evening from wherever you're joining us from. My name is Maggie Omotesi. I'm a financial journalist, an aspiring agripreneur, and I've been blessed to be covering markets for the past 15 years across Africa. Markets this time around in terms of African economies. It is my absolute pleasure to be in the driver's seat once again at another side event with the Opportunities for Africa program, OYA, and of course with some of our partners, the Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO, and the United Nations Industrial Development Organization, UNIDO. Thanks, ladies and gentlemen, once again, and I want to put down a few house rules before we kick off. So we option available. It's your microphone if you're not speaking, and once you're called upon to speak, or if you have something you would like to put across or interject, please unmute yourself. We will have 50 minutes of a roundtable discussion. After speakers, depending on some of the conversations or points at Twitter at OYA program. And having said all of that, I would like to welcome you once again to today's session and a very, very, very big virtual welcome. Let's kick off the conversation with a few statistics, which I'm hoping or I'm sure some of you have already heard of. More than 2/3 of Africans depend on agriculture for their income and their basic food needs, meaning it's very critical, it's very crucial to Africa. And there was a report earlier this year from the UN, which reported that over 100 million Africans were facing food insecurity in 2020. And by the way, this is an increase of more than 60% from the previous year. And they went ahead to warn that levels of food insecurity were expected to worsen in 2021. So it is a timely conversation that we're having, especially that we get to reimagine food systems through digitalization in Africa. Our theme today specifically is innovative local transformation and value addition of production through digitalization. And it's based on the belief that the rapid advancement of technology, as we've seen even in different sectors, and internet penetration across Africa can also mark a new era of modern agriculture that ultimately can increase efficiency and productivity. And I am very thrilled and excited to hear some of your experiences, some of what you have to say, some of the amazing work you're doing across the continent to help, accelerate growth and development through modernizing agriculture. Ladies and gentlemen, I once again would like to welcome you and ask you to join me in introducing our speakers for today. And I'll start off with Mara Zanet Michelo, who is a social entrepreneur, business development and project management professional with 15 years professional experience. She's the founder and CEO at Jacaranda Hub, an organization that aims at developing young people through the provision of collective services, infrastructure, and specialized tools and equipment for common use among the young and aspiring MSMEs with growth potential. Rashid Larib is a state engineer in horticulture from the Agronomic and Veterinary Institute, Hassan II of Rabat. He then became responsible for the production of citrus fruits and also olive and citrus at the headquarters the head of Plan Maroc, appointed 2019 entrepreneur and a youth employment expert from Guinea. He is the CEO of Jatrofa Group, a microfinance institution designed people. That he also worked in setting up a sub-regional youth employment program in River Union Basin. In 2011, Alpha and other national investors for a microfinance company facilitating the launch of the coordinated for 11 years. Texera, the representative.
Oui, je suis là. Merci pour l'invitation. Je n'ai pas les vidéos, mais j'entends très bien. Allô? Vous m'écoutez?
Oui, bonjour Monsieur Texera. On est en
Ok.
train d'attendre la modératrice qui a un petit souci de connexion, donc je pense qu'il va se reconnecter.
D'accord,
Merci.
merci bien.
My sincere apologies. Was that my internet?
Yes, I think Maggie, you had some internet issues. If ever it comes back, you can just put your video off and we can hear you. Thank you.
I am so sorry. I guess this is what happens when we're doing virtual events. And I would just kick off the conversation. I feel like we've lost so much time in the internet connection. I'd like to kindly ask everyone to welcome our speakers today as we kick off this conversation. We have heard the profiles and I've given a little bit of background about what we're discussing today, but I would like to start with our panelists from Mara, why don't I start with you to give us an idea, when we talk about digitalization in agriculture, what kind of innovations are we talking about?
Thank you so much, Maggie. And I'm excited to be part of this roundtable because agriculture, innovation in agriculture is such an important topic for Africa, especially with the magnitude of problems that we have around impact for agriculture, sustainable agriculture. So I think for me, when we talk about innovation in agriculture, it basically starts with one thing. How can we improve learning, research and information that will accelerate learning in agriculture? Because I think for the longest time, we have a lot of small-scale farmers who are basically adopting or graduating into farming because that's what they've been taught by their parents. So if they're picking up wrong techniques, which are not sustainable for the environment, sustainable in terms of producing more, sustainable in terms of sustaining the value chain, then it means that we get the same culture and the same cycle of agriculture that doesn't grow Africa, that doesn't grow the food basket and doesn't provide value addition when it comes to agriculture. So I think for me, the first thing is how can we improve data collection in agriculture, innovation that will help improve collection of data, collection of information, agronomy, technology that will help to build the lessons and best practices that can then improve the agriculture sector in terms of building capacity. The second thing that I see as an opportunity, especially when it comes to innovation and what innovation can do, is to basically understand the whole value chain. I think we need to start exhausting the agribusiness value chain. A lot of people, I'll give an example of Zambia, a lot of people are stuck at cultivating the land, growing the vegetable or growing the plant, and then putting it on the market. But I'm looking at opportunities for branding, for marketing, opportunities for digitization in terms of digital marketing, for where, connecting markets from one market to the next. And that is the only way we're going to improve and sustain the agribusiness sector. And then finally, I think for me, it's looking at how do we start to digitize and make agriculture cool for young people. And I'm very passionate because when you look at Africa, the demographic has presented that we have more youth than adults in our in our continent. So how can we start to digitize and create, attractive creatives, attractive marketing, campaigns that will attract young people to go and become farmers or, agribusiness entrepreneurs. So those three are very pertinent. I know there's more, and I'll allow my colleagues to mention, but for now, I'd like to present those three.
Thank you very much, Mara. I want to bring in Ken here because you mentioned a few things like, getting the youth excited about agriculture, but also support. And Ken, I know you've extensively worked with FAO, you've worked across Africa supporting digital strategies. What kind of policies are we talking about in this particular case that you have previously worked with to enable digitalization in the agriculture sector?
Thank you very much, Maggie, and thank you, colleagues. Very happy to be here. I think Mara pointed out a number of critical elements that are needed for innovation in the agro-food sector that I will not touch again. Now, if I want to specifically respond to your questions, I will maybe first of all refer to the digital transformation strategy of the African Union, because the African Union developed a couple of years ago a digital innovation strategy, transformation strategy, that has pointed out a number of key areas where we need really to make progress in order to really transform the continent and enable the use of digital to support poverty alleviation and growth achievement. And some of these areas, first of all, is capacity building. So basically digital literacy, because as we know, many young people or many agricultural stakeholders, they don't have adequate capacity in order to really use the technology. Of course, today we have, for example, the smartphone that is even used in rural areas by many young people who are involved in agriculture. But if you want really to leverage adequately even the smartphone, you need to better know it. Even the feature phone, you need to better know it. You need to know to have a number of capacity to adequately use it for example, digital agriculture, to receive advisory services, etc. So capacity building is critical, not only for the youth or the farmers, but also even for extension officers or policymakers, etc. We also need, of course, to have infrastructures that are really available across the different localities in which we have, let's say, a development that is going on. And especially, we know that generally in rural areas, we have only poor infrastructure. So we need to have specific policies, specific strategies that really can transform rural areas' digital infrastructure, including how we can, for example, leverage alternative energy so that we have energy available for rural areas and for the countries in general. We also need to have better policies, better digital policies. And specifically when we come to the agricultural sector, we have like fragmented interventions. Sometimes you have, first of all, we have that issue that agriculture is dealt with by many ministries, by different ministries in different countries. And sometimes you have in each of those ministries, you have, let's say, initiatives that are implemented, and they are duplicated, there is lack of coherence, etc. So we also need, from policy point of view, for example, that we have pragmatic digital agriculture strategies, for example, that are implemented here and there. And we also need to develop better innovation in entrepreneurship. And when we talk about innovation and entrepreneurship, if we want particularly to talk about the youth, we have at least two categories of youth that can be concerned. First of all, we have the agricultural entrepreneurs, so the farmers. They need to better understand innovation, digital tools, how they can use it really to have a better access to market, how they can use it to have better access to finance, how they can use it really to expand their market and their opportunities. So working to capacitate young agricultural entrepreneurs around digitalization is key. At the other side of the coin, we have young people who may be, for example, software developers and the like, who may offer digital solutions for the agricultural sector. And we can also support them so that they can offer better services. And this will drive innovation across the entire value chain, across the entire agri-food system. And this will also create, of course, jobs and better jobs. I will stop there for now.
Thank you very much, Ken. I see you've mentioned initiatives that, for example, the African Union has come up with digital strategies that you've worked around with. You've mentioned something that is interesting. We need better innovation and the two types of entrepreneurs. And probably Mara might have something to say on that, but I want to bring in Mr. Malobi Obechi, the founder of Malobis Limited. I mean, it would be nice to hear from an entrepreneur, his side of view. Do you feel like there's enough support, especially for entrepreneurs like you? And could you just give us your experience working around, for example, in Nigeria?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. So as you said, I'm working in Nigeria and each market has its own unique challenges. So I would say that, there hasn't been as much support as I would have liked. Right in the beginning, there was a bit of support from the Export Promotion Council because our business is mainly focused on exporting goods from Nigeria to the UK. And so one really valuable thing that they did for us is that they were able to connect us with suppliers of particular goods that I was looking for, which was really helpful. But aside from that, it's not, I think a lot of the time the help is there, but it's not really well advertised, or it's hard to know where it is. I join a lot of these meetings and people ask me, how can we get financing? How can we get funding? And a lot of the time, it's not that the funding is not available. It's not that the financing is not available. It's just that it's people don't really know where to get it. People don't know the names of the different, institutions. In Nigeria, we have, the Bank of Industries, we have different agricultural financing funds. Fair enough, they deal with much larger investment amounts, but people don't really know these institutions and and how much money is being offered. In addition to that, there is not enough education on how to prepare yourself for the funding, how to get off-taker agreements, how to make sure you buyers, have all these things in physical documentation so that when you go to a commercial bank or a financing institution, you can come prepared. I think a lot of, especially the younger generation, are not really educated enough on how to prepare themselves for funding, because it's one thing to say, I need a bunch of money, but is your business in a state that is less risky for financial institutions to lend the money? Because at the end of the day, they also need to get returns on the money they're giving to you. So I'll say that the help is there technically, but it's not reaching the people that it's meant to be reaching well enough. And so I think there needs to be a lot more education and knowledge shared on how to actually access finance. And I think access to finance is one of the bigger challenges for people all across the value chain, whether you're a farmer, whether you're an exporter, whether you're a processor, getting access to finance is a common theme that underlies a lot of the people in the value chain. Because if you're a farmer, you might need a tractor. If you're an exporter, you might need financing to at least, because a lot of the time as well, the buyers in different parts of the country, they might not pay you the money up front. So you need to finance that so that you can service the customer and maybe get paid maybe in a month, maybe even 2 months. So financing is a common theme, but I think there needs to be more of a push on reaching out to people and educating them on how to get that fee.
Malobi, interesting that you mentioned crucial points like, a lot of young people don't know about these initiatives and support out there. So Ken, you might have to elaborate more on that. But before we get to that, we're so lucky that we have somebody from a microfinance institute here helping entrepreneurs in Guinea. And Alpha, this is where I bring you in to answer the financing question. Obviously, as Malobi has mentioned, we need funding. And a lot of this funding, just to add on Malobi, comes from foreign companies that, you have funding that is foreign. I'm guessing it might not even be able to, doesn't give you the autonomy probably to innovate the way you would have wanted to, because the funding is not coming from local entrepreneurs or local sources or even local banks. How do we address such challenges, Alpha? And how are you working, especially in Guinea, to help entrepreneurs like Malobi be able to access funding?
Merci de m'inviter. Bonjour. Est-ce que techniquement la traduction, l'interprétation marche? Je vais donc partager peut-être mon expérience avec l'organisation pour laquelle je travaillais avant d'intégrer une équipe de consultants pour l'ONUDI, parce que je ne travaille plus pour cette institution de microfinance depuis un certain moment. Mais je suis très heureux de partager cette expérience sur la question du financement. Alors, l'ONUDI, l'Organisation des Nations Unies pour le développement industriel pour laquelle je suis consultant, intervient en Afrique, surtout en Afrique de l'Ouest, sur plusieurs projets où elle intervient sur 2 sujets dont on a parlé ici et que j'aimerais partager avec vous. La première question, c'est la question du financement. Alors, sur la question du financement, nous avons été assez innovants en tant qu'institution internationale de combiner la digitalisation et les finances. Et nous adressons la question de 3 sortes. Premièrement, nous avons compris très rapidement que la question, que dans le secteur de l'agriculture, le financement, il est particulier. Pourquoi? Parce que l'activité agricole même, elle est particulière. Il faut un financement à moyen ou long terme et il faut un financement conséquent. L'agriculture n'est pas un endroit dans lequel il faut investir de petites sommes d'argent. Mais il y a plusieurs besoins et les besoins sont fonction du volume de travail ou de l'importance de là où on se situe. Et sur des pays, par exemple, où l'ONUDI intervient comme la Guinée-Bissau, le Mali ou la Guinée, nous développons des mécanismes de financement qui à la fois offrent des projets et des services de financement nano, donc du nano-financement, de la nano-subvention pour de petits entrepreneurs et producteurs dans les filières de la mangue et dans les filières de l'ananas, où nous apportons justement des solutions de financement pour pouvoir améliorer la question de la production. Ensuite, nous élargissons ces opportunités de financement à toute la chaîne de valeur, donc aux acteurs du secteur du transport, aux acteurs du secteur de la transformation, aux acteurs du secteur de l'exportation, et nous apportons justement du nano au méso-financement pour ce genre d'entrepreneurs. Et pour des entrepreneurs qui ont une plus grande envergure et qui ont de plus grosses ambitions pour l'export, par exemple, nous mettons en place, c'est comme ce que nous avons fait au Sénégal, dans le sud du Sénégal, des mécanismes qui permettent à ces gros entrepreneurs d'avoir accès à de plus gros financements, mais nous participons au processus pour dérisquer ces projets, pour les améliorer, et nous offrons donc des services non financiers. Ces services non financiers nous permettent aujourd'hui de faire appel au niveau local à des structures qu'on appelle des structures d'aide à l'innovation et à l'entrepreneuriat. En général, ce sont des incubateurs, des accélérateurs que nous mettons à profit pour pouvoir justement aider ces entrepreneurs à mieux comprendre leurs projets, à mieux cerner les projets et à sortir avec des business plans et à mieux s'armer pour pouvoir parler à des banquiers ou à des financiers. Notre expérience nous a aussi, dans le domaine de l'innovation, nous a amené à expérimenter justement l'accès à tous ces services non financiers à travers des plateformes digitales. Et la collaboration, elle a été facile et fructueuse et surtout empreinte de succès dans plusieurs pays. En ce moment même, nous sommes en train de l'expérimenter en Guinée-Bissau, où nous mettons à la disposition de nombreux entrepreneurs la possibilité d'aller en ligne sur des sites de formation, d'avoir accès à du mentoring, à de l'incubation et à de l'accélération, mais d'un point de vue digital. Cela permet d'accélérer, d'accroître d'abord le nombre de bénéficiaires parce qu'il n'y aura pas assez d'accélérateurs et d'incubateurs dans toutes les régions d'Afrique. Le digital règle la solution pour pouvoir toucher un plus grand nombre de personnes, mais nous collons à ces mécanismes, à ces accélérations et à ces incubations, des solutions de financement. Nous faisons un partenariat très poussé et très fructueux avec les compagnies de telco, les compagnies de télécommunications qui sont sur place et qui déploient des solutions de mobile banking. Et ces solutions de mobile banking nous permettent à la fois, comme je vous ai dit, de déployer du financement pour ces entrepreneurs qui sont dans des zones rurales et qui n'ont pas accès de façon traditionnelle aux institutions de microfinance, mais aussi aux banques. et ils ont accès à cela. Nous avons eu une expérience extrêmement intéressante au nord du Mali, qui est une situation, qui est une zone à problématique où les structures bancaires et les institutions de financement n'existaient pas. Et nous avons développé justement ce genre de remote, de mécanisme de remote banking qui a permis à ces entrepreneurs d'avoir accès à du financement. Je voulais juste peut-être faire une petite remarque que aujourd'hui, de plus en plus, et au niveau du financement, et au niveau de la formation, donc de l'incubation et des accélérations, mais aussi au niveau de l'utilisation des données, nous nous appesantissons beaucoup, et au niveau de l'ONUDI, ça se ressent. En Guinée, nous allons bientôt déployer des drones agricoles qui vont permettre à d'autres jeunes de la chaîne de valeur de l'agriculture de proposer des services de drones, donc des services de data mining, mais aussi de processing et puis de conseil pour les agriculteurs, qui va permettre justement à tous ces agriculteurs d'avoir à la fois le conseil pour être dans un processus d'agriculture smart et aussi les conseiller sur la question de l'accès au financement et en dernier lieu, de renforcer leurs capacités à la fois de maîtriser leurs produits, mais aussi de maîtriser les process d'exportation.
Thank you very much, Alpha, and I hope, Malobi, you've been able to pick something from some of the work they've done across Africa. But from what I hear especially is microfinance institutions and banks extending funding to farmers and entrepreneurs in the agriculture sector. I want to bring in at least somebody from the government side. And I think this time around, we should hear from Mr. Jose, especially that we just had him join us on the call. When we talk about funding, sometimes we forget that governments have actually committed to giving part of their budgets to support entrepreneurs. And with innovation, obviously, comes huge investments in terms of training, in terms of support, in terms of even giving, the equipment, machinery, just help the small scale farmers, especially in rural areas. In the case of Cabo Verde, how are you working in terms of supporting the small scale farmers to digitalize? Could you just give us your experience?
Merci, bonjour. Je salue tout le monde. Je profite pour vous dire qu'aujourd'hui, c'est mon anniversaire. Et
happy birthday!
Merci bien. Merci. Je représente la Direction générale de l'agriculture et l'élevage du ministère de l'Agriculture et de l'Environnement. J'aimerais vous dire aussi que je suis lusophone. Je m'excuse pour mon français. Et pour vous dire que, pour parler un peu sur l'organisation des producteurs, on travaille souvent sur l'organisation des producteurs parce que, comme nous sommes maintenant, c'est très difficile pour l'attraction des jeunes pour faire leur investissement au niveau de par exemple, culture maraîchère. Ici, chaque agriculteur, ils font leurs achats, la commercialisation de leurs produits. Il y a les vendeuses qui vont sur les champs pour acheter et après distribuer. C'est pour dire que nous sommes, vous savez que Cap-Vert, c'est un pays avec le tourisme. Nous sommes en train de préparer, on a déjà préparé un projet pour incorporer les jeunes pour faire la liaison entre l'agriculture et le tourisme, les hôtels. Pour ça, il faut avoir des financements pour démarrer avec des petites interventions de jeunes pour organiser les producteurs en termes d'acquisition des facteurs de production et aussi la commercialisation et le transport. Aussi, vous savez, nous sommes des îles, il y a souvent les problèmes de transport maritime surtout. Mais nous avons, dans cette législature, nous avons le ministère d'innovation qui est en train de préparer les startups des jeunes pour plusieurs secteurs. Je peux vous dire que pour l'agriculture aussi, dans ce moment, ce n'est pas c'est pas très attractif pour les jeunes. Les jeunes préfèrent des commerces ici, surtout pour les grandes villes. Mais les initiatives que nous avons, c'est surtout pour faire les jeunes retourner au champ avec la technologie. Par exemple, nous sommes en train de faire les inventaires des agriculteurs qui est déjà fait pour pouvoir voir les périmètres agricoles où on peut faire des expériences pilotes. Nous avons des initiatives de cet ministère avec l'intervention des banques aussi, mais nous avons un projet concret qui sera financé pour la BAD pour avoir une ligne de crédit pour 7 jeunes qu'ils ont d'initiative pour faire le travail de la liaison, l'entrepreneur entre l'agriculture et le tourisme. Jusqu'à un moment, Cap-Vert emporte environ 60 millions d'euros pour les produits agricoles pour les hôtels. Nous avons l'objectif au moins de 30% de ce montant-là pour les hôtels font les achats locaux. Alors, ce sont les jeunes qui vont faire ce travail de liaison entre les producteurs et les hôtels. Dans ce moment, je pense, dans ce point, ce sont des informations que j'ai pour vous dire. Après, on peut avancer.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jose. And at this point, I want to bring in Bashir, Mr. Bashir, joining us from Morocco. And with your extensive experience, how are you using big data? Because Mr. Jose has talked about big data. How are you using that and digitalization as a tool or a key tool for agricultural transformation in Morocco? Did we lose Mr. Bashir? Okay.
Donc, je suis là. Donc, merci tout d'abord au nom de l'ADA, de l'Agence pour le développement agricole, qui est une agence qui a été créée avec l'avènement du plan Maroc vert pour le pilotage de la stratégie plan Maroc vert. Je tiens, au nom de son nom, de remercier l'Organisation des Nations Unies, l'ONU et l'Organisation des Nations Unies pour l'alimentation et l'agriculture, FAO, pour cette louable initiative d'organisation de cet atelier sur les opportunités pour les jeunes en Afrique. Donc, je suis Laghrib Rachid, je suis actuellement directeur de l'ingénierie des projets au sein de l'agence pour corriger de développement agricole. Avant, j'ai travaillé dans une société de développement agricole et j'étais responsable pour la production des agrumes. Mais maintenant, je suis directeur de l'ingénierie des projets au sein de l'ADA. Donc, mon intervention sera axée sur l'expérience du Maroc en matière de stratégie, puisque l'ADA a été chargée de piloter et de superviser la stratégie Plan Maroc Vert et aussi les responsables pour la mise en œuvre de la nouvelle stratégie Génération Green. Donc, je vais parler un petit peu de l'expérience en matière de stratégie de développement avec un focus sur l'axe en relation avec les jeunes et la digitalisation comme solution pour la modernisation de l'agriculture. Donc, comme vous le savez, au Maroc, le secteur agricole occupe une place primordiale dans l'économie marocaine, puisqu'il a des enjeux à la fois sociaux et environnementaux. C'est un secteur qui contribue à hauteur de 14% du PIB, et aussi avec une part importante autour de 38% de l'emploi total au niveau national et 74% au milieu rural. Et je crois avec la crise sanitaire liée à la pandémie de la COVID-19, l'agriculture au Maroc s'est imposée comme secteur stratégique et prioritaire puisqu'il a continué à assurer l'approvisionnement du marché local et du marché de l'export en produits alimentaires pendant toute la période de la pandémie COVID-19. Et en 2008, on peut dire qu'un tournant majeur a été opéré, et ça grâce à l'adoption de la stratégie Plan Maroc Vert, c'est une stratégie qui reposait d'une part sur la mobilisation des ressources financières importantes affectées à l'investissement public pour la réalisation de grandes infrastructures, notamment les infrastructures liées à l'irrigation, les marchés de gros, les petites et moyennes hydrauliques, et aussi l'investissement public dédié pour l'agriculture solidaire, qui sont des projets qui sont destinés aux petits agriculteurs qui sont situés au niveau des zones marginales. Et aussi, la stratégie s'est basée sur les aides financières à l'investissement privé. Ce sont des aides financières octroyées au privé pour promouvoir l'investissement privé. D'autre part, la stratégie s'est basée aussi sur des réformes affectant le management du département de l'agriculture à travers la mise en place des entités spécialisées dans l'Agence pour le développement agricole et d'autres agences notamment. Et cette stratégie aussi s'est basée sur la généralisation de la contractualisation entre le public et le privé autour d'objectifs et de projets d'investissement. Dans ce sens-là, 12 plans agricoles régions ont été élaborés et 19 interprofessions a été créé, ayant abouti à la signature de 19 contrats programmes filières. Après 10 ans de mise en œuvre de cette stratégie, plan Maroc vert, l'agriculture est devenue un moteur de développement économique et social par la transformation du secteur agricole en un secteur qui est moderne, compétitif et aussi inclusif. Avec des résultats très probants, je peux dire que le PIB a été doublé en 2008 à 2020, en passant de 75 milliards de dirhams par an à 125 milliards de dirhams. Aussi, les exportations, elles sont passées de 15 milliards de dirhams à 33 milliards de dirhams par an. Par rapport à l'impact environnemental, à travers les projets de reconversion de l'eau, du gravitaire au goutte à goutte, ça permet d'économiser 2 milliards de mètres cubes. Et malgré les réussites enregistrées dans le cadre du plan Maroc vert, donc l'évaluation à faire ressortir aussi des axes d'amélioration. Et sur la base de ces axes d'amélioration, une nouvelle stratégie agricole a été conçue avec une vision claire des objectifs chiffrés. Donc cette nouvelle stratégie appelée Génération Green, comme son nom l'indique, elle place l'élément humain au cours de ces préoccupations. Il vise notamment, au titre de ce premier fondement, à contribuer à l'émergence d'une classe moyenne agricole, à dynamiser la jeunesse rurale et aussi à développer le capital humain et aussi à structurer davantage les agriculteurs autour d'organisations agricoles performantes. Je crois que l'essor de l'humain humain, en effet, est une condition sine qua non de la poursuite, de la modernisation du secteur et de la consolidation des acquis. La pérennité de développement agricole constitue le deuxième fondement de cette vision, qui est fortement lié à l'élément humain. Ce fondement qui vise à consolider les acquis du plan Maroc vert, tout en faisant un saut qualitatif et technologique à travers des actions spécifiques sur les filières agricoles, notamment à travers un objectif d'atteindre 70% de produits qui seront valorisés, c'est-à-dire un effort sera focalisé sur la valorisation de la production, et aussi à travers la modernisation des chaînes de distribution. On parle ici des marchés de gros nouvelle génération, des abattoirs, la qualité et l'innovation. C'est ainsi qu'une nouvelle ère de l'agriculture marocaine s'ouvre en mettant la jeunesse et les nouvelles technologies au centre de ses intérêts. Donc, pour cela, la stratégie Génération Green a adopté comme axe de développement l'émergence d'une nouvelle génération de jeunes entrepreneurs agricoles. Et pour concrétiser cet axe, le département de l'agriculture a prévu 4 leviers. Donc, le premier levier concerne l'offre de valorisation des terres collectives. Ce sont des terres actuellement qui ne sont pas valorisées et ça va concerner 1 million d'hectares qui sera notamment valorisé à travers l'accès au foncier aux ayants droit et aux jeunes, avec un objectif de cibler 45 000 jeunes sur 200 000 bénéficiaires. Donc, le deuxième levier a trait à l'instauration de mécanismes institutionnels et d'incitation spécifiques permettant l'installation de 180 000 nouveaux jeunes exploitants à travers un mécanisme de transmission intergénérationnelle. Actuellement, la réflexion a engagé pour la mise en place d'un dispositif dédié au transfert des exploitations agricoles, des exploitants âgés aux jeunes, Normalement, cette opération qui consiste à rajeunir la population des exploitants qui souffrent aujourd'hui de vieillissement. Les statistiques ont montré que plus de 350 000 agriculteurs ayant un âge actuellement supérieur à 65 ans. Et par conséquent, pour mieux valoriser le foncier agricole disponible et de créer de l'emploi pour les jeunes, surtout que la catégorie des jeunes, par nature, est un vecteur de modernisation et de transformation, notamment via le levier de la digitalisation et de l'utilisation des nouvelles technologies. Le troisième levier par rapport à l'axe de l'entrepreneuriat des jeunes, elle porte sur le soutien aux entreprises et les coopératives de services liées à l'agriculteur. Donc, avec un objectif de créer 160 000 emplois dans les services agricoles, paragricoles et services digitaux. C'est un levier très important. Et le quatrième levier concerne une stratégie d'accompagnement et de formation visant à former 150 000 jeunes à l'horizon 2030. Et ces leviers seront appuyés par des incitations financières spécifiques de l'État pour aider les jeunes à réaliser leurs projets, aussi par l'accès au crédit bancaire garanti par l'État avec des taux très bonifiés de 1,75%. Et pour atteindre l'ensemble des objectifs tracés et améliorer aussi le climat de l'entrepreneuriat dans le milieu rural, au profit des jeunes dans le domaine d'exploitation agricole et de services agricoles et para-agricoles. Et en partant des différentes expériences conduites au Maroc, ce que nous avons constaté, que beaucoup d'expériences n'ont pas été concluantes. On va dire pourquoi. Premièrement, c'est à cause des financements bancaires qui étaient maigres. En plus, il n'y avait pas d'incitation spécifique de l'État aux jeunes. Ça d'une part. Deuxièmement, c'est l'insuffisance à l'accompagnement non financier de jeunes dans l'accomplissement des procédures, dans l'encadrement, la formation et le conseil jusqu'à la réussite de leur projet. Et cet accompagnement, dans beaucoup de cas, il existait, mais il y avait beaucoup d'intervenants, beaucoup d'administrations qui interviennent. Et du coup, lorsque le jeune veut entamer son projet, entamer les procédures, il faudrait aller visiter tel service, tel département, les banques, et à certains moments, le jeune lâche et laisse tomber son projet. Maintenant, ce que nous avons prévu pour faire face à ces contraintes, c'est mettre en place une sorte de guichet unique d'accompagnement des jeunes pour la concrétisation de leurs projets au niveau de chaque région, en mettant à leur disposition les moyens de travail nécessaires, se rapportant aux ressources humaines qualifiées, au système numérique et informatique, tout en les appuyant par une assistance aussi technique spécialisée. Donc, ce guichet sera chargé de l'accompagnement des jeunes tout au long du cycle de projet. Et en phase de conception, il apportera son appui pour la structuration de leur offre. Ensuite, il aura un rôle de jouer en matière d'incubation des projets les plus novateurs. En phase de placement aussi, ce guichet assurera une mission d'appui aux jeunes pour faciliter toutes les démarches administratives ou encore la coordination nécessaire pour permettre aux jeunes entrepreneurs de bénéficier des différentes mesures incitatives et programmes nationaux d'appui. Et parallèlement à l'émergence de cette nouvelle génération de jeunes entrepreneurs, l'émergence de cette nouvelle génération sera accompagnée par un grand chantier de digitalisation de l'agriculture. Aujourd'hui, les défis des changements climatiques et de la sécurité alimentaire a poussé le département de l'agriculture à relever le challenge de la digitalisation pour faire de l'agriculture un secteur moderne, compétitif et durable, et pour créer aussi un pont entre les jeunes et le secteur agricole afin de rendre ce secteur un véritable choix de vie et de carrière. Et comme vous le savez, la digitalisation offre une large gamme d'outils performants, des nouvelles technologies et aussi des applications numériques tout au long de la chaîne de valeur agricole et agroalimentaire pour améliorer la productivité, la qualité, la traçabilité et aussi l'accès au marché et aussi la gestion efficace des intrants et des ressources. Elle permet également de suivre la tendance mondiale, de s'aligner avec les concurrents et de répondre à des problèmes structurels des secteurs. Ainsi, des solutions, parfois peut-être Ainsi, des solutions et plateformes digitales peuvent être développées par des jeunes entrepreneurs. Au plan de la production agricole, on peut citer par exemple la prestation de services de vulgarisation et de conseil agricole pour améliorer la productivité, encore l'utilisation des drones pour l'optimisation de l'utilisation des ressources et des intrants en vue de minimiser les coûts des exploitations agricoles. Concernant la commercialisation, les jeunes peuvent aussi développer des services digitaux pour offrir aux exploitants agricoles des informations sur les marchés, aussi pour optimisation de leur prix de vente et leur proposer ainsi des marchés virtuels sur lesquels ils peuvent vendre leur production. Je termine par la question.
Mr. Rashid, this is quite interesting from your presentation, as you mentioned some of the things that you are working on in Morocco, and something is more clearer than ever, that we need financing and funding, not just from banks, but from also government institutions to be able to support the youth. And the one-stop shop that you're talking about is an amazing idea. I can assure you we have lots of comments in the group, lots of our participants from Morocco who are so excited about this. And it brings me to my next question, which is from one of our participants. I just want to remind everyone that you can send in your questions in the chat, and I will be able to direct them to our speakers. Now, there's a question here from Francesca Dalla Vel, who says, do you think that digitalization has improved due to COVID-19? As many activities in the agri-food sector had to go virtual, and many young entrepreneurs had to rebrand their way of operation to digitalization. And if yes, how to bring that forward even after the pandemic to open new markets is something to think of. I think, Ken, I would direct this question to you.
Okay, thank you very much for the question. Yes, I can say that the use of digital technologies has strongly improved during the COVID time. I'll give you a couple of examples quickly. For example, let's say I was working with a project a couple of, let's say some months ago, a year ago, during COVID time in Kenya, called the Vijabees project. And because of the lockdown, the young farmers that we were in the young agricultural cooperative that we were working with, they don't have the opportunity to really sell their product to restaurants that they have been servicing in the past. But thanks to the use of Facebook pages and the use of WhatsApp, they have acquired new clients, and many of them have started using digital tools, social media, for example, for businesses because of that. We also have another example, for example, in Mali and Burkina Faso, in the framework of a project that is called Garbal, that is providing advisory services to pastoralists using satellite data and big data, by the way. And it has been observed that there has been, in the period of COVID, okay, let's say when they have done the research up to, let's say, a year ago or some months ago, that there has been an increase of 64% in the use of USSD requests in terms of the call that have been made to have advisory services responses. So there has been a high increase in the use of digital tools. Also, those who are offering digital agricultural services, they have also gained a lot of, let's say, a lot of resources, a lot of financial means because of or due to the COVID. So yes, COVID has enabled an increase in the use of digital tools. So we really need to take that into account by developing new strategies that can better mainstream digital tools in the agri-food system and in business operations for agripreneurs in general. Thanks.
It looks like there's so much that has happened during this COVID-19 pandemic, but I saw Mara was about to nod her head. Mara, has this in any way happened in your field at this, in this time where everything just went virtual?
Yeah, I'd like to agree with Ken in terms of the digital uptake, but then again, on the flip side, I feel like we have not capitalized on the impact that COVID has had. I would say that people that already have access capitalized on the use of digital platforms and digitization, but we still have a great number of people across Africa that have limited access to connectivity, have limited access to digital platforms, and also just don't have the digital skills to be able to utilize digital platforms. So I see governments still trying to operate in a reactive format and not a proactive, identifying the opportunities that some of the challenges that COVID highlighted, to have a clear, deliberate framework on how we're then going to take up the next, few years in terms of identifying what are the gaps and how do we improve on this so that we can have more people now jumping onto digital platforms. So I think from my perspective and just looking around my country and some of the neighboring countries, I feel like we're still operating on a reactive format and not a proactive format. And we still have a lot of people that are still excluded from the use of digital, platforms. And that is going to continue creating such limitations for a number of people. And there's that exclusive way of operating. So I think it has a double-edged sword. As much as we're saying, there has been an improvement, I think the improvement happened on the people that already have access. Whereas the people that don't have access still have these challenges and continue to be excluded from, the effects or impact of digitization.
So in other words, we did not take up the opportunity as we should have. I see Ken trying to note, but I'm going to bring in a government perspective, and it'll be nice to hear from Mr. Jose. Has in any way what has happened previously, restrictions, closed borders, or, a standstill in all activity across the continent because of COVID-19, has it in any way changed your strategy towards a smart farming in Cape Verde?
Merci. Je pense que ça a renforcé beaucoup l'utilisation des technologies avec interface entre les producteurs et les consommateurs. J'écoutais mon collègue, il a donné exemple de l'utilisation de Facebook pour la commercialisation des produits. On a eu plusieurs jeunes qui ont profité de cette situation de manque de transport terrestre pour faire la commercialisation des produits. Ils ont profité de cette occasion pour prendre des produits à l'intérieur des îles et faire arriver aux villes. Et jusqu'à un moment, on a vu plusieurs autres initiatives de faire la même chose, mais dans une échelle plus grande pour pouvoir satisfaire les demandes. Et pour ça, il faut avoir des investissements. Ils ont eu la nécessité d'acheter une voiture pour pouvoir transporter les produits. Et ça a posé des questions de financement. C'est pour ça qu'avec le gouvernement, ils ont vu cet aspect de pouvoir financer ce marché. Et il y a une autre question qui est sur la question de gestion de l'eau. Parce qu'ici, au Cap-Vert, le facteur l'eau, c'est plus important. On a créé une entreprise de gestion de l'eau parce qu'avant tous les points de le forage, etc., il était avec les associations. Mais on a donné des capacités, on a capacité des jeunes pour prendre l'initiative de faire la gestion, la distribution, la vente de l'eau aux agriculteurs. Et ça, ils ont utilisé la technologie de voir le niveau de l'eau, etc., à distance. Alors, je pense qu'ils ont profité très bien de la question du Covid pour utiliser la technologie. On peut parler après sur la question concrètement sur les aspects jeunes, tourisme et les hôtels, avec les composantes que nous avons. qu'on a créé. Je reste par ici, après je peux développer ça.
Yeah, I think we can touch on that a little bit later. From what you have mentioned, it's so clear that we need financing, funding. When we listened to Mr. Rashid Larib's presentation, it was also very clear that we need financing, funding, and investment into the sector. You cannot innovate if there is no money. And that brings me to a question we have here for Malobi. He says, most time youths are aware of the available funding institutions like Bank of the Industry, as you mentioned. However, the procedures involved to access these funds most often do not favor the young persons. What's your suggestion, experience, I suppose, for young persons to be able to access funds from these institutions as starter funds? And in spite of their challenges, or which are lack of properties for collateral or other requirements that the young persons might not have. I think, Malobi, you can give us your perspective, but this question would also be very good for Alpha, because this is where you're working extensively within West Africa. Malobi?
Sure. So it's, first of all, it's a great question. I think it's a bit difficult to answer not knowing specifically how much money the person looking for, what kind of project, etc. But I would say that there's mainly two ways of getting financing. One is debt financing, and another is equity financing. And I think that also we lack. I say we. I could talk about both the investor side and also the entrepreneurial side. There's a sort of lack of the equity financing. Individual angel investors, people that are willing to put their money into small and medium businesses and help them to grow. Because it's not just an African thing. Around the world, a lot of people tend to go to private investors to get a little bit of funding, at least to start off and get themselves off their feet. And then further on down the line, when they start growing, they look for loans, because a lot of the financing that these institutions offer is much larger, and thus they would need bigger collateral like a house, etc. But also, what can also help is showing proof of sales, having traction, showing that this is a real business that's functioning, that's getting revenue, you're not losing money, you have sort of assets, etc. That can help with your application to these kinds of institutions. But I would first of all exhaust equity financing. Not everyone has friends and family that are investors, but you might know someone that knows someone that is looking to invest, So what they call it the 3 Fs, right? Friends, family, and fools. But I would focus on the friends and family. But reaching out to your network, asking people, showing them your business plan, showing them what you're working on, and make sure you exhaust that first before trying to reach out to these larger institutions, because like I said, the amount of money that they're looking to loan out and the kind of requirements that they have is much, much larger. So friends and family is good. Reaching out to people in the network, asking for referrals, going to events, going to agribusiness events, networking sessions, keep yourself busy. And we have, speaking of digitizing, people pitching to investors on their mobile phone, just saying, look, this is what I do, this is my business, I'm looking for this amount of money. There's lots and lots of, on Clubhouse as well. And you can get anything from 250,000 Naira up, depending on the kind of business you're looking for. So yeah, make sure you exhaust your network, make sure you exhaust the private investor network first, and then look to get into these more larger financial institutions. And if you need to go to these institutions, make sure you have proof that someone is willing to pay for your product, proof of sales, proof of traction, and I'm sure that would help you increase your chances of getting funding. Thank you.
We'll call that some tips and tricks from Malobi. Ideally, I want to point out friends, family, and fools. I don't know what the fools stands for, But I guess these are some tips some of the entrepreneurs on.
Ignore the fools, ignore that.
Okay, let's ignore the fools. That's some of the tips we can take today in case you're not able to get the financing. But this brings me to you, Alpha. Looks like a lot of entrepreneurs in agriculture are not aware of these financing options. And when we listened to you earlier, it's so clear that you've been doing a lot of work across West Africa, and yet we still have people who say, we don't know. There is this question, he says, and this is from Casa. She says the funding requirements are mostly not inclusive for the youth. Even if they are posted for the youth, the majority of the youth enterprises fail to meet the criteria. Is this so?
Il faut comprendre deux choses. C'est que en Afrique, en général, il n'y a pas assez de guichets de financement pour les entrepreneurs en général, surtout les start-upers, mais surtout pour les gens qui sont dans le domaine de l'agriculture. Alors, les institutions comme l'ONUDI ou d'autres institutions qui travaillent sur le secteur viennent pour démontrer à travers des projets que tel ou tel mécanisme marche. Ensuite, c'est de la responsabilité des gouvernements et surtout du secteur privé pour ce qui est de l'accès au financement, de combler le gap et d'adresser la question de façon beaucoup plus holistique. Donc, aujourd'hui, systémiquement, il faut dire qu'il n'y a pas beaucoup de financement disponible pour les jeunes de façon globale, mais aussi pour les jeunes entrepreneurs agricoles de façon particulière. Le financement est un besoin qui suit l'entrepreneur du début de son aventure entrepreneuriale jusqu'à la fin. Il y a un besoin fondamental et constant à chaque fois et à chaque étape de l'aventure entrepreneuriale. Donc, du love money de départ, de la petite subvention de famille au départ, jusqu'à l'equity, il y a une seule constante, c'est qu'il faut, dans l'agriculture, il faut d'abord vendre avant d'avoir produit. Il faut vendre avant d'avoir produit. C'est la première chose. Donc, il faut faire ses devoirs de maison, il faut maîtriser son projet et ce sont les services justement d'aide à l'entrepreneuriat ou les structures d'aide à l'entrepreneuriat que sont les incubateurs ou même les écoles qui forment à l'entrepreneuriat, les écoles de commerce, les structures, la formation, à savoir comment on gère son entreprise et comment on la développe. L'autre chose qui est extrêmement importante, c'est qu'il faut qu'on comprenne également que du love money à l'equity, il y a une constante également, c'est le marché. Et ce marché-là, il détermine très souvent les besoins de financement que les entrepreneurs peuvent avoir. Il y a donc aussi, comme vous l'avez dit, une asymétrie de l'information sur les opportunités qui sont disponibles. Donc, de l'opportunité de financement vers l'entrepreneur qui a besoin de financement, il y a un sérieux gap d'information qu'il faut combler et il faut adresser. Il faut dire aux jeunes là où les financements sont disponibles et de l'autre côté, il faut dire aux financements là où les jeunes prometteurs sont disponibles. Mais entre ces deux, il y a ce qu'on appelle le business plan et le business match. Donc, entre celui qui a de l'argent et celui qui veut de l'argent, il faut qu'il y ait un intérêt simultané, il faut qu'il y ait un intérêt de part et d'autre pour qu'on puisse avoir un deal, pour qu'on puisse avoir une affaire conclue, soit de financement de dette ou de financement en equity. Il y a cela. L'autre chose que l'on a constaté également à travailler avec des entrepreneurs africains, c'est la réluctance à partager la paternité ou la propriété. Alors, très souvent dans certains pays d'Afrique, il y a un vide juridique qui est constaté au niveau justement des affaires. Ce n'est pas très aisé pour un business angel, par exemple, d'entrer dans le capital d'un jeune entrepreneur au Nigeria. C'est pas, par exemple, je prends le Nigeria, je prends le Niger, je prends la Côte d'Ivoire, je prends etc. Ce n'est pas automatique. Ça suit des processus un peu compliqués et très souvent, ceux qui veulent investir aussi dans le domaine de l'equity, donc des business angels, sont à des niveaux d'investissement et des tickets d'investissement qui sont beaucoup plus élevés que les demandes de la plupart des investisseurs, des entrepreneurs dans le domaine de l'agriculture. Il y a donc ce qu'on appelle le missing middle. Et ce missing middle en termes de financement concerne tous ceux qui ont un besoin de financement entre 5 000 et 20 000 euros. Et vous ne trouverez pas beaucoup de structures de financement, surtout dans le domaine de l'equity directement, qui adressent cette question-là. Et de plus en plus, les gens sont en train d'être sensibilisés à entrer dans un processus, pour ceux qui sont de l'entrepreneur, à dérisquer leur projet, donc avoir un passé, donc un historique de financement pour avoir d'abord pris un premier prêt et l'avoir remboursé, un deuxième prêt et l'avoir remboursé correctement, pour ensuite justement présenter cela comme étant des documents qui peuvent soutenir une demande de financement au niveau equity, parce que cela demande aussi un certain nombre de garanties que beaucoup de pays africains aujourd'hui présentent en termes de déficit. La justice et les structures juridiques pour pouvoir adresser les manquements et les défauts de paiement constituent un autre frein pour les structures qui veulent investir. Donc, les risques pays entrent aussi dans le modèle de scoring des pays dans lesquels il faut investir.
Thank you very much, Alpha. And I couldn't agree. One thing to note, of course, organizations like OYA, FO, this is where they come in to help with some of the funding, but also look out for some of these initiatives around. I want to bring it from what you've mentioned, Alpha. It's very clear that there's need for investment, not just financing from banks, but also investment. And I want to bring in Mr. Rashid Larib, to give us a perspective on this. When he was presenting the one-stop shop for Morocco, which was exciting for me, it was financing from government, financing, facilitation to access loans in banks in Morocco. But how are you working with the private sector, the public-private partnerships, to be able to provide funding to these entrepreneurs?
Merci pour la question. Donc, le sujet des jeunes et de financement, c'est un sujet très important. Donc, comme vous le savez, donc l'investissement est tributaire de financement dans la plupart des cas. Les jeunes éprouvent des difficultés pour avoir ce financement pour financer leur projet. Donc, ce que nous avons prévu, ce genre de guichet unique, et aussi des incitations qui seront accordées par l'État pour encourager les jeunes à réaliser leurs projets, des incitations spécifiques aux jeunes, comme aide à l'investissement pour monter le projet ou aide à la location de terrain. Ce sont des aides qui sont octroyées dans le cadre de fonds de développement agricole. Et aussi, en parallèle du programme de Sa Majesté le Roi, que Dieu le glorifie, le programme d'appui aux jeunes à travers un crédit qui est garanti par l'État avec un taux d'intérêt très faible qui est 1,75. Donc, c'est un taux qui va permettre aux toutes petites entreprises, aux startups de monter leurs projets, et en parallèle avec un accompagnement non financier de l'État, comme j'ai dit tout à l'heure, à travers les guichets uniques, et à travers les incubateurs au niveau des régions et des provinces pour accompagner les jeunes, pour concrétiser leurs projets avec un appui tout au long du cycle de projet. Ces jeunes qui vont bénéficier de programmes de formation qui est programme dans le cadre de la nouvelle stratégie, qui est un programme qui vise 150 000 jeunes qui vont bénéficier d'un programme de formation pour qu'ils soient capables de gérer leurs projets et pour réussir les projets. Ça par rapport au financement. Donc, la question de financement aussi, donc, dans le cadre du plan Maroc Vert, donc, il a adopté l'agriculture solidaire. L'agriculture solidaire qui vise, c'est une intervention directe de l'État au profit des petits agriculteurs, des jeunes qui sont situés au niveau des zones vulnérables. Donc, c'est une intervention de l'État à travers des projets clés en main dont l'État est chargé d'exécuter et de réaliser au profit des petits agriculteurs, à condition qu'ils soient organisés au sein des coopératives ou au sein des associations, et à condition que ces agriculteurs soient des petits agriculteurs qui soient situés dans des zones qui sont vulnérables, qui sont assujettis au phénomène du changement climatique, pour améliorer leur résilience et par rapport au changement climatique et par rapport aux volatilités des prix. Ça par rapport aux aides qui sont allées directement aux petits agriculteurs qui n'ont pas les moyens pour investir, pour moderniser leur exploitation, pour réaliser des projets. En plus de ça, le plan Maroc Vert a un nouveau concept qui est l'agrégation. L'agrégation, actuellement, il y a une loi sur l'agrégation. L'agrégation qui est un lien entre une grande entreprise, un industriel, avec des petits agriculteurs en moyennant un contrat d'agrégation. Donc, l'agrégateur qui va peut-être résoudre le problème de financement à travers le financement de la campagne agricole des petits agriculteurs, c'est-à-dire un préfinancement. Préfinancement des intrants, préfinancement, mais à condition que les petits agriculteurs ils vont livrer la production après l'achèvement de la campagne. L'agrégation actuellement, il y a des mécanismes d'accompagnement, il y a il y a des mécanismes pour le règlement des différends entre l'agrégateur et les agrégés, le mécanisme de ça aussi, c'est une solution, l'agrégation, l'agriculture solidaire, les crédits qui sont garantis par l'État avec un faible intérêt, et en plus des incitations spécifiques à accorder dans le cadre de fonds pour encourager les investisseurs pour réaliser leurs projets. Merci.
Maggie, you are muted.
Sorry, I'm also trying to cope up with the technologies, but one point to note out as you wind up, Mr. Rashid, thank you very much, is encouraging investors to bet their money in agriculture as well. I feel like, Kane, your microphone has been unmuted for the longest.
I was struggling with technology, if I may say so. No, I mean,
I felt like you wanted to say something. And
no, it was an error, but I missed the opportunity to make a couple of contributions, if you don't mind.
Let's do that.
Yeah, first of all, I mean, to respond to the investors' question, I think we need to remind also young entrepreneurs that your first investor is your customer. So the first thing that the really entrepreneur need to, I would say, to cherish is really the customer. So basically working on the business model so that it is a successful business model, so that it is a business that can keep customers, that can leverage returning and paying customers. It is very fundamental. Of course, we have the investment need, but we need, first of all, to understand that, because actually we have a lot of investment in Africa also that are not always adequately used, not only by those who are providing investment and sometimes government, but also sometimes by the young entrepreneurs themselves. And also we need then that capacity building to better encourage them to implement and manage successful businesses. But also we need to better connect the entrepreneurs to the value chain and to the market. I think Alpha was talking about, at a point in time, he was talking about producing when there is a market. I think more or less this is what he was elaborating. Indeed, we need to favor that connection between the entrepreneurs and the market, so that they may have, for example, how do we call it? I forget the word, but this is very critical so that we ensure that what they produce is for the market that can be paying for that, okay? And also, I believe that there are a couple of measures that some of the countries are not adequately leveraging upon, which is, for example, reserving a share of the public procurement to youth. I think that the Kenya and maybe other countries are experimenting that, but we should maybe better and more leverage that specific scheme so that you have the opportunity to benefit from the public procurement and ready market. And the last thing that I want to share about that is that even digital technologies are offering us a variety of tools that we can also leverage for access to finance. We have, for example, the crowdfunding that is increasingly, I would say, adopted globally, but I believe that in Africa, it is not adequately leveraged. So we need to develop crowdfunding in order to have more access to finance. And also some startups are developing today credit scoring schemes leveraging big data, so that the production information provided by the farmer can help them to identify how they can be, for example, credit worthy, and how they can benefit more easily from access from finance without having the high collaterals or that, for example, the banks and others may be requiring from them. So there are measures there, there are tools available. We just need to better use them. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Ken. I think you've answered this question that was coming from David Liagenda, saying so much has been talked about the need for financing young entrepreneurs, but we need a more proactive approach to this problem. And we appreciate what Mara's Jacaranda Hub is doing in Zambia for the training and financing platform they have created, and we need more of this. I think, David, this has been answered by Ken, but I want to bring in Mara. Michael says there is a gap identified in gender, there is a gender digital gap in agriculture. And Divine, so lots of people are asking, how do we mainstream youth, women, and persons of disabilities in enhancing the achievement of the global goals? I brought you in to talk about the gender digital gap that we have in agriculture. Is this something you experience? And could you just give us your experience and how you're working extensively with women, for example, in Zambia?
All right, thank you so much, Maggie. I'd like to give a practical example that we recently had. There was a call by UNDP for an agribusiness project, financing for each association organization to come up with 40 businesses that were going to be financed with a grant for them to be able to upscale or start. And the condition was that we need to produce at least 5 people that are coming, with disabilities, and 60% should be women. I can tell you that nearly all the organizations struggled with this. Another practical example, we just graduated with the International Trade Center. We did a digital citizen program where we're training 300 digital freelancers to give them skills and match them with clients for them to be able to, create employment for themselves. And the call was for women, okay? And unfortunately, we had to balance it out with men because the numbers were quite low. So there are 2 things that we're talking about here. It's creating platforms that provide access, deliberate access to women and people with disabilities. But then it's having the right tools and infrastructure that enable women and people with disabilities to participate actively. And then the other thing, it's also just the response from the women and people with disabilities. When we call on women to take up space, to take up such opportunities, the response is quite low. So we need to find mechanisms that incentivize women to be able to participate fully. What are we giving them in exchange for their time, in exchange for their attention? And we also should bear in mind that a lot of women across Africa are still dealing with issues of running a home, being the breadwinners. Now we see more women playing the role of a provider in a home. So for her to be taken away from her responsibility as a woman of the home, and for her to participate in a 4-hour program, what is the incentive that we're providing for her to be able to do it with a peace of mind, with a free mind, and to be able to participate actively? So we must not overlook the social issues that limit women from full participation. I think once we start to identify these and put in some measure to sort of compensate for them to then take up these opportunities, I think we'll be able to start, driving more women towards full participation. The other thing is, basically institutional mainstreaming. When we talk about gender mainstreaming, it's such a beautiful word, but we have not put enough structures and a framework that conducively provides for real gender mainstreaming. Creating a seat at the table is not, gender mainstreaming. It starts there, but it's not the whole picture. So when we're talking about gender mainstreaming, it's, yes, providing space, providing a platform, but then how do we ensure that that women bring value to the table and that their value is actually recognized and appreciated, and we can document, we can create stories that inspire more women to be able to get the motivation and the inspiration to join the journey. I think we have not done a great job, and I'll speak for Zambia. I've seen Nigeria does quite well in promoting and marketing their female entrepreneurs, the female leaders. I'd like to see something like this for more African countries. Can we create, an African women, magazine or platform, you know, that when you Google African women who are doing exceptionally well in different spheres of work and life, that we come up with names, like real names, people that are relational, people that a lady in one of the provinces in my country can relate to and say, you know what, I've seen this woman in my community and she's such an inspiration because she's basically broken the ceiling and she's broken the boxes that are usually, you know, created for women. I think we need to start documenting and telling African stories for African women so that we can show more of what's working and not why everything seems to be, you know, seems not to be working, because we're here. I'm a woman. Yeah. I'm doing amazing work, right? How many of my women in this country know about me? And it's because we don't have enough platforms supporting to market and represent African women to other African women. And then the final thing, I'll give you a scenario right now, which I'm hoping it will change. It's early days. We have a new government in place, right? We have a new cabinet. Our president is still picking his people. But right now, if you look at the representation in his cabinet, it looks like wait a minute. We've got all the top dogs. Where are the top, you know, the female alphas and what's happening? We've just changed the narrative all over again. We worked so hard to create great representation of women in parliament. And now we have so many men in parliament. It's not a pretty picture at all. So we should be deliberate about promoting female participation in different, you know, spaces, especially in agriculture. The final thing, when we talk about gender mainstreaming, I'll go back to the marketing of women. When you see the women in magazines, in articles, it's old wrinkled women. You don't see a Mara that is representing a female farmer that is promoting agriculture in her country. We see women that look tired and look like poverty hit them right across the face. And that is the woman we're presenting to the world as driving agriculture. That is not a good look. That is not a good look for a lot of women. So we are actually limiting the number of women that want to take up space because we're not creating a platform that tells a full picture of how women are transforming and how women are progressing in different spaces.
Mara, thank you very much. Trust me, I could have added so much, but I'm more the one now asking the questions. So I'm going to open up this discussion, especially when it comes to, you know, gender mainstreaming. We see in the group chat, rather on the participation, Clara Park has shared some documents on a brief on FAO's gender responsive digitalization in Africa. But I also saw Ken nodding, and it's just you and I on this discussion, so I'm going to open up even to the gentlemen. Ken, they have shared something on FAO, but I will ask what Mara asked. Can we create initiatives that bring rural women to the table? Rural women, not the ones with wrinkles, but young rural women to the table to be able to, you know, be a part of this transformation in agriculture, obviously to be able to take care of their families, but also invest and, you know, increase their incomes.
Is it for me? Oh, my.
I think all of you can take it on, but I said I will open up to everyone. So shall we start with you, Malobi?
Yeah, sure. I want to say that, you know, for me, working with women has been a blessing to all of my businesses. So I think that on the one hand, we do want to employ more women, but I actually have more women as business partners because it's just a yin and yang in terms of, you know, what they can see, things they can spot, the details, their own inputs, the way they can help you grow your business. So, I mean, women have been a blessing to my business personally. So, you know, my production manager, to the person that's, you know, the marketing, to sales, to the head of the cooperative, you know, these are all women. And I think that it shouldn't be just a conversation around how can we employ women. It should be how can we have women in positions of, you know, real power where they can, you know, implement things that they know will be better for other women. In addition to that, I think that women are really the backbone of agriculture in Africa. When you really get on the ground and you go into the fields, you know, sometimes you might get a man that, you know, shows his face and stuff, but really it's the women that are holding it together. And so one model that has been going on a lot in Africa is the cooperative model. And I think that this is another way that we can get more female participation. You know, a lot of female-led co-ops, they do really well. And so I think it's also up to business people to consciously choose to work with these kind of cooperatives that are run and you know, controlled by women. And so, yeah, I think I just wanted to give that balance and say that it shouldn't be just, you know, how can we just employ women? But I think, you know, the more we give them equity in the projects we're running, when they have an actual say in what we're doing, then they can also implement things in the way that will benefit other women. Because as a man, I won't be able to understand how to implement things that will benefit women because I'm not a woman, you know? So I think it's about giving them those decision-making powers so that they can affect the change that is absolutely necessary. So that's all I wanted to contribute for now. Thank you.
And Malobi, there is something to note here. As you employ more women, please put into perspective of support, things like supporting maternity leave, among others. But I want to bring in Ken in this, especially with creating initiatives that are bringing these women to the table.
Thank you very much. In terms of platform, I believe that we have many platforms in Africa, honestly. First, I don't think that it is very easy to have a Pan-African platform, and we cannot have a single platform, okay? I would like to mention one platform that exists, okay? Of course, it's not maybe aggregating only rural women, okay? It is the Value for Her platform that CTA has initiated, and that now AGRA is maintaining and is developing. So it is a platform that aggregates successful or very promising women agribusinesses that are doing well on the continent, and that can be showcased as models. So I would like to encourage those who don't know Value for Her to reach out to AGRA, or to maybe Google Value for Her, AGRA, and then maybe you can have that. I think it is a platform that can be of use. At the national level, okay, I don't know a specific, let's say, platform for women, for example, around technology, but I know that when we take the example of Nkulimanyang, okay, it is a platform that can be replicated, and that may be as well, if we want, why not focus on women? So maybe at national level, we can do that, and development organization may support these kind of schemes, so that more women really interact at national level and really take leverage their learning in order to grow better. We also have another platform that is not focused on women, that is, for example, Agribusiness TV, that many of you may know, where it is a platform that through videos promote successful young agripreneurs, and they share their learning, they share their lessons, what they are doing as business. So Agribusiness TV is a great platform where we can have role models, where we can have young entrepreneurs giving advices. We also have, I think, Agripreneur TV that Koraf is facilitating, etc., etc. And we are having more and more as well platform leveraging WhatsApp, okay, where we can aggregate on WhatsApp or Telegram so that we don't have, we are not, I would say, blocking to the issue that we had yesterday, for example, with Facebook and WhatsApp. Telegram is another great platform where we can have maybe at least 1,000 of people who can be interacting on it. Those tools offers opportunity to really aggregate young women, including rural women, so that they can better interact and learn together and grow together. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Ken. We have very limited time, a few minutes left, but in these few minutes, I think I'll bring in Jose to give us some perspective on how to support female farmers. I'm just gonna really, I feel like we need to touch on gender as we wind up, and then we can be able to feel like we've touched every corner. Like Mara mentioned, sometimes we just, touch on the surface, but it would be nice to hear from government, specifically your experience in Cabo Verde. How are you supporting rural female farmers?
Ici au Cap-Vert, Je pense que les femmes sont très bien engagées avec les activités des hommes. Il n'y a pas de différence. Et l'opportunité, je pense, il faut améliorer, mais c'est égal pour tous les gens. Mais on peut observer qu'il y a les différences. Les femmes font surtout la commercialisation des produits. On peut dire que les hommes font la production, même avec la participation des femmes, mais surtout sont les femmes qui vont faire la commercialisation. Il y a des gens même qui vont acheter chez les agriculteurs hommes et cet homme même dit non, c'est pas avec moi, ça c'est ma femme qui va faire la commercialisation. Alors c'est surtout ça que c'est ici au Cap-Vert. Mais nous avons les défis ici général pour créer des conditions pour tout le monde, soit hommes ou femmes. Et les risques, mais nous avons les risques liés à l'agriculture ici au Cap-Vert, rendent accès au crédit pour le secteur encore plus difficile. Je parle de l'irrégularité des pluies. Juste pour vous donner une idée, le Cap-Vert est dans sa 4e année consécutive de sécheresse. Nous avons aussi le problème de ravageurs et maladies, des chenilles légionnaires, des criquets, toutes les situations aussi qu'ils ont dans les zones du Sahel. Nous avons ici, parfois, c'est plus fort. Les lignes de crédit agricole ont été disponibilisées au secteur bancaire, mais l'octroi de cet crédit a été bien moindre que prévu. C'est surtout pour la modalité du crédit. Il y a même la question traditionnelle que les gens, ils n'aiment même pas aller aux banques pour prendre l'argent. Il y a toute cette question qu'on travaille là-dessus pour améliorer. On peut parler sur les chaînes de valeur de l'agriculture et du tourisme et l'entrepreneur jeune. Ce projet aura un grand impact dans la réduction du chômage et l'accroissement de la consommation de produits agricoles locaux et par les hôtels. On peut savoir aussi un effet sur la création de l'emploi dans la chaîne de valeur agricole, par exemple fruits, racines, tubercules, qui peut être observé à travers de l'augmentation de l'entrepreneuriat des jeunes liés aux chaînes de valeur d'agriculture et tourisme. Cette question aussi, on peut voir que les femmes, les jeunes, surtout les filles qui ont terminé le lycée, sont souvent dans cette question. Nous avons des composantes pour cette situation, que le renforcement des capacités techniques des jeunes dans la chaîne de valeur et l'appui du renforcement des capacités d'entrepreneurial et pour voir le business de relation d'agriculture et les chaînes de valeur. Il y a plusieurs résultats qu'on peut parler ici, que l'initiative pour voir les jeunes, soit hommes ou femmes, c'est souvent, ici, on ne peut pas voir plus de différence, mais souvent dans notre projet, on remarque, surtout pour les formations, on dit qu'il faut chercher les femmes pour participer dans les actions des projets qu'on développe ici. Merci bien.
Thank you very much, Jose. Thanks for the remarks. Now, we have really run out of time. We have a few minutes left, but we'll take some closing remarks from each of our speakers. But I have to read out some of the comments from the participants who said the inclusion of women is non-negotiable. We should all take the initiative, and it should be deliberate effort and intentional. Women are the backbone of agriculture in Africa, I agree, but not the resources proceeds from agriculture. I guess they meant they don't go to them. I want to bring in Mr. Rashid Larib to give us his closing remarks, also having heard from financing to investments into the sector and to bridging the digital gap. Mr. Larib, your closing remarks.
Merci. Donc, en conclusion, ce qu'on peut dire, que la réussite de la stratégie Plan Maroc Vert s'est basée essentiellement sur deux choses qui sont très importantes. Premièrement, c'est la mobilisation de l'investissement et à travers la mobilisation des financements auprès des bailleurs de fonds nationaux et internationaux pour réaliser tous les projets d'infrastructure et aussi pour réaliser les projets de développement solidaire au niveau des zones vulnérables. Deuxièmement, c'est l'organisation. L'organisation, c'est très important, l'organisation, pour réaliser tous les projets et les programmes qui sont tracés dans le cadre des stratégies à travers l'organisation des acteurs à tous les niveaux et aussi la contractualisation entre l'État et le privé pour réaliser les projets. Sans contractualisation, sans effort du privé aussi pour la mise en œuvre des stratégies, on ne peut pas arriver à notre objectif. C'est ça.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rashid. I'll bring in Mara for some closing remarks.
Thank you so much, I think, to everyone that made contributions today. My closing remarks, I think there was a huge discussion around financing. I think one of the things that we need to identify is that it's not the money that is such a big issue. We've followed the money, we have found the money, right? It is the preparedness of most of our entrepreneurs in different sectors, agribusiness to state one. Investor readiness is such a huge topic because financial literacy in Africa is still very, very low. I can speak of Zambia, it's quite low. And if we don't provide programs that build the capacity, change the mindset of the people that we are pushing towards investors, we'll continue to get a no from majority, in fact, from all investors, okay? And that no is depressing for an entrepreneur. So Malobi spoke of the three F's, right?
Ignore that.
No, let's talk about the third one. It's the fools. We don't have fools that have money to give to you. A lot of people are under the assumption that someone will give you money, and those are the people that we think are foolish, the investors, right? They don't have money to waste. So you ought to prepare yourself. And we need a lot of investment coming to programs, ecosystem building programs, such as Jacaranda Hub, such as Impact Hub, different ones that are now coming up across Africa. We need private sector, partnership, government and private sector partnership. Invest in ecosystem building programs in order to create a pipeline, okay, early stage development of startups and entrepreneurs so that we can provide the capacity for them to qualify for the investment that is there so that you don't take risks on people that have not tested the journey of entrepreneurship, because it is a journey. So our investing in early stage startups provides you with the comfort that by the time we are giving you startups that have great ideas and we've tested these ideas, you are guaranteed that there's a high level of success. So for me, my plea is that partner with programs that are there, that are existing in countries, and we are growing in great numbers. And our impact, if you come and measure, right now we're running a cohort of 500, okay, incubatees in our next gen program. If you come and partner with us, it means we can increase the capacity to sieve through that number of people and give you the best crop of entrepreneurs that go on to now produce results. What we want is commercialization. The concept of a startup and an SME in Africa, I think that the merit the standard has been, it's too low. So when you're going to meet investors in Europe or investors in other parts of the world, they're looking for more. And because the standard is still low, we're not able to meet global financing. We need to raise the standard by producing the best quality of entrepreneurs that have commercialization in mind. And as they become agribusiness entrepreneurs, they have an investor in mind from inception. So that is what my be.
So we have to also rethink financing. Mara, thanks for those closing remarks. I want to bring in Malobi to add on that with his closing remarks.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I think, you know, Mara summed up a lot of what I was going to say. I think sometimes people think if I just had more money, you know, my business would work. But a lot of the time, you really need to be prepared. You really need to prove that if I give you this money, you're not going to lose it. You're not going to run away with it. You're not going to, your business is not going to close down. And, you know, when we're talking about agribusiness, you know, as much as we want people to get into the sector, there are risks. You know, you're at the mercy of nature itself. So just make sure that you are prepared. And I think that this is a case of education. Like was mentioned earlier, reach out to different places where you can get some training. You know, innovation hubs. I shared a resource, Brighter Bridges. It's a market research company that shows innovation hubs in different countries. So that's a place to start. You can always use Google as well. And start really understanding and learning how to prepare yourself for funding. Because trust me, if your preparation, you know, everything you had to show, if it was that good, people would be throwing money at you. So just make sure you're prepared, and you know, I'm sure you'll be able to get that funding. And finally, I'll just say that, you know, agribusiness is the way forward. We need more digitization, like that was mentioned in this conversation, all the way along the supply chain, from all the way from the exporters to the producers. But also we do need, I don't want to bring the conversation backwards, but we do also need less complicated innovations like tractors. Tractors is something that I like to talk about in these conversations. We have very, very few tractors per farmer in Africa compared to developed countries. And a job that can take maybe a few days or a week takes a farmer a month because they don't have tractors. So these are less complicated, you know, we're not talking about AI, we're not talking about drone technology, just a simple tractor can have a profound effect on the productivity. So these are other things that we should think about, but not for today. But thank you again for having me, and it's been a great discussion.
And we definitely will have another conversation on that. Somehow everything shifted to financing, like we need the money to buy the tractors, don't we? I'd like to bring in Kane to give us some closing remarks. Thanks, Malobi.
Okay, thank you very much. So I believe we need really to better mainstream digitalization to transform the agri-food system and to accelerate opportunity for the youth. This is really, really what I would like to call for. And actually, FAO Africa has developed a new digital innovation strategy in that perspective. And in the framework of our digital innovation strategy, which is a digital, actually agriculture strategy, so we can also call it like that, we have identified 3 key pillars around which we are going to work. First, we are going to work with government, especially on data and big data, to really help them to better leverage data to improve development practices, okay, and also to have more transformation opportunities leveraging digitalization. Secondly, we want to strengthen how FAO staff expert also use digital tools to better serve government and the different stakeholders. And thirdly, we want to really support an improved ecosystem at local level that can leverage digitalization for the transformation of the food system. So we are really eager to work with all stakeholders, especially in the framework of that third layer, to transform the local ecosystem so that we can really leverage digitalization to grow. And last word will be for the youth. As we say, genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. And I would like really to encourage entrepreneurs to be bold, to come up with great ideas and not to fear to implement them. Thank you very much for your opportunity. I have very much enjoyed exchanging with all of you. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Kane. Be bold and implement your ideas. I'd like at this moment to bring in Alpha. I feel like Alpha has given us lots of solutions in how to access financing, you know, for innovators, especially in the agriculture sector. What would be your closing remarks, Alpha?
Moi, je pense qu'il n'y a jamais eu autant d'opportunités pour l'Afrique de bâtir une agriculture résiliente, une agriculture commerciale pour à la fois sortir de la dépendance alimentaire de l'extérieur, mais aussi profiter de cette opportunité pour bâtir et construire dans tous les pays africains des capitaines d'industrie, des jeunes femmes, des jeunes hommes, qui sont justement de grands chefs d'entreprise et qui sont des millionnaires qui vont pouvoir justement alimenter les 1,4 ou bientôt les 2 milliards de personnes que nous serons. Le marché africain, c'est un marché vibrant, c'est un marché qui est en train de grandir, c'est un marché qui est fait aussi pour les entrepreneurs africains. Donc, il faudrait qu'on mette en place les structures, les infrastructures, les mécanismes et les accompagnements pour que les jeunes Africains comme Malobi ou d'autres que je connais dans plusieurs pays soient des millionnaires, des Dangote dans leur pays dans le domaine de l'agriculture. C'est une opportunité unique que nous avons dans notre histoire de bâtir justement cette génération de capitaines d'industrie, de capitaines d'affaires qui peuvent justement transformer l'Afrique. Ça, c'est une chose. De l'autre côté, c'est une opportunité unique de montrer la technologie Made in Africa. Dans plusieurs domaines et surtout dans l'agriculture, nous voyons de plus en plus d'innovations technologiques qui viennent d'Africains, qui viennent des hubs technologiques et c'est l'opportunité pour nous à la fois de permettre à ces technologies de se diffuser en Afrique, de consommer de la technologie africaine en tant qu'Africain. Et là, je m'adresse au pouvoir public, je m'adresse aux partenaires techniques et financiers, je m'adresse aux investisseurs pour que demain, il y ait des tracteurs africains, il y ait des drones africains, il y ait un système smart irrigation africain et qu'il y ait aussi autant de systèmes de financement. N'oubliez pas que pour l'innovation dans le domaine des finances, l'Afrique, c'est d'abord la mère du mobile banking. Si nous avons osé avoir une technologie aussi disruptive que le mobile banking, nous pouvons avoir une technologie aussi disruptive pour pouvoir permettre à des millions d'agriculteurs, d'entrepreneurs dans le domaine de l'agriculture, d'avoir accès à la fois aisément au crédit, mais aussi de faire face à d'autres personnes pour pouvoir attirer des investissements directs. C'est le temps pour l'Afrique et c'est le temps de le saisir. Merci.
Thank you very much, Alpha, for your closing remarks. I would like to bring in Mr. Jose for the closing remarks.
Oui, merci. J'ai beaucoup appris avec les collègues des pays frères. Je suis très content. Je pense que surtout Cap-Vert a besoin de financement dans le développement des bassins versants, surtout dans les domaines de mobilisation de l'eau, parce que c'est notre facteur limitant ici au Cap-Vert pour ne pas dépendre de la pluie. L'irrégularité de la pluie a démontré que si on attend seulement la pluie, on ne va pas faire l'agriculture. Et cette mobilisation d'eau, on pense que devait être surtout dans le domaine de désalinisation de l'eau saumâtre et réutilisation de l'eau résiduelle traitée dans l'agriculture. Comme pour la consommation de population, c'est surtout la désalinisation de l'eau et toute l'eau dans les stations de traitement de cette eau, c'est pratiquement, il va vers la mer. Alors, il faut utiliser ça pour l'agriculture. C'est clair qu'on doit investir fortement dans le renforcement des capacités avec l'accent sur les jeunes et les femmes en utilisant l'innovation, la technologie que ici au Cap-Vert, presque tous les jeunes ont un smartphone dans la main. Il faut l'utiliser dans le profit de l'agriculture. Et merci encore une fois pour l'opportunité.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jose. I'm just going to reiterate a few things as the closing remarks from Mr. Rashid Larib. He says, of course, noting out availability of investments and financing is their top priority in Morocco, but also Mara has said something else interesting. It's not the money, it's the preparedness of most of the entrepreneurs. And Malobi, I hope you took the blessing of being a millionaire. He says, be prepared and prove the value of your business. be prepared, get as much education and training as you can. And from Ken, he says, be bold and implement. But also they're working closely with governments on big data to see if they can be able to help entrepreneurs and farmers across Africa. Also use the digital tools, use the digital tools, use the digital tools. Alpha says we have the opportunity to build resilient entrepreneurs who can become millionaires. We take the blessing, Alpha, and let's use the African markets. And we've been also blessed with mobile banking. I think one thing we did not really talk much about was infrastructure, which has come out from the closing remarks of at least Mr. Jose, who says, we need to solve water issues in Cabo Verde, especially to be able to support farmers, because if there is no infrastructure, there is absolutely no value chain. You cannot take your goods to the markets. You cannot, have all the technology we've talked about, and that sums up everything. Thanks a lot, guys. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's been such an exhilarating conversation. I've learned so much from the 3Fs, which you can use even away from agriculture, to how to be able to become better, or even outsource or even access funding across the continent. There are lots of comments, but you can find this conversation on our YouTube, rewatch it, share it with your friends on the OYA program, but also follow us at OYA program on Twitter. My name is Maggie Umotesi. I think we've run out of time. We have actually gone past by 10 minutes, but I guess that's okay. It's been such an awesome conversation. Thanks a lot, and take good care of yourself. Sanitize, mask up, and stay safe.
And get vaccinated.
Yeah, and get vaccinated.
Please
that's
get
it.
vaccinated.
You have the vaccines in your country. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Everyone.
Thanks to the participants. Thanks for the questions and making the time.
Thank you so much, Maggie, and lovely to meet you all, amazing panelists. I'm going to reach out to all of you. I think you have solutions for Zambia, and we can learn so much.
And Ken, awesome background there. Thanks. Oh, we forgot to say again, a happy birthday to Mr. Jose. So we hope you enjoy your day, and that it's a day filled with...
Merci.
Okay,
Merci.
from the rest of the team, I will close this, and I wish you a wonderful morning, a wonderful afternoon, and good evening.
Thank you.
Au revoir, merci bien.
Au revoir, merci, à bientôt.
Merci.